What does it mean to be dominant? I've played at the highest level. I've received the highest award.
Thank you.
But those things did not make me dominant. On this show, I want to interview people from various backgrounds and careers to see what made them dominant. That's why I decided to partner up with Mission Winnow. Together, we want to promote progress and achievement while sharing real stories of struggle and success. We want to acknowledge the challenges in front of us, but we also want to pivot towards improvement and positivity.
Everything is going to work out.
We are the dominant ones. We dunk on the world. We don't let the world dunk on us.
Vince's dunk style came from watching you.
Well, he said it.
Yeah,
he said it. Yeah.
Like he, you and Mike are, and of course Dr. J are some of the greatest I've ever seen. But I wanted to say, you got robbed.
Yeah, you're right.
You already know what I'm talking about, man.
You're right.
They robbed our
man.
And I love Mike, man, but come
you know
on.
what?
If it hadn't been in Chicago, man.
You want to hear something funny? Mike and I have never talked about that dunk.
I know you hadn't. What are you talking about?
When we talk to each other, it never comes up.
I know it does.
It's kind of an unspoken
like,
thing.
y'all, come on, Mike. You know.
Like,
no.
Hat on top cause we think excellent. Frames on straight cause I see excellent. Dress for success cause I be excellent. Everything we do, everything we do.
What up, Mike? Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing? Mike, first of all, I want to thank you, man.
Thank you
for coming to my home and sitting down. We have some conversation about our lives and some of the things we went through, some of the challenges, and this show is called The Dominant Ones, and it's not so much about always winning and losing, but how you win in life.
Yeah.
Not just from a competition standpoint. And I know you in the music business, you see some of the same challenges. And as you was growing up, what was some of the challenges you went through to help get you in the mindset that I want to be something special?
So I think with me, with the spirit of competition, so I wanted to be a breakdancer.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I know, right? And, you had rerun for what's happening, so I figured I could up rock, I could pop lock, but I just couldn't hit a backspin to save my life. You know what I mean? Just too chubby for the backspin. But I still wanted to be in hip hop, so I fell into rapping. And I realized that if I could rap, the older kids would let me hang out a little longer and stuff. But I think, honestly, the reason I took a winner's mind state and attitude is because of the time and place I grew up and with the people I grew up with. So I grew up in the Collier Heights, Adamsville community. The Collier Heights was a mixed income community of black people. It was an enclave right on the west side. So everybody lived there, from State Rep Billy McKinney, Major Ball, who was with the Atlanta Police Department, Dr. King's parents, Herman Russell. So you had success, and then you had those working class kids that were out. Well, all these kids went to the same schools together, and we were a competitive little bunch of scraps. You know what I mean? Whether it was baseball, football, basketball, all kids played and we were competitive in the classroom and out. So I grew up in an environment where whatever you did, you wanted to be the best or known for. At the same time, I was listening to people like Ice-T and Ice Cube, and it's saying to my young 12-year-old self, I have to be this good.
Well, it's funny. During the time you guys was in Adamsville, I lived over in that area in
Yeah.
Hamilton Road area. So when y'all was little kids, I was a young, guy in college, and so I see a lot of those young kids running around, that side of town. But one of the things that was amazing to me in growing up, that basketball was the last thing I wanted to play.
What do you want to play?
I actually wanted to be into track and field, and a math teacher. Math didn't work out, but I really wanted to do something different in life, And I felt like either track and field or math would be my way out of the ghetto.
I understand. Really?
But I had to refocus myself. If I'm gonna help my family, and I'm gonna get out of poverty, only way I can do that is leave Baltimore, Maryland at that time, because those guys in the neighborhood gave me the courage to leave. And growing up in the neighborhood you went, and believe me, it was tough. You know, because I lived over in that area, so nothing was ever easy. So to see all those kids, you know, striving to be something and refocus themselves for something bigger than themselves, that's how you become successful.
Absolutely. I tell my kids all the time, you know, you're gonna be as good as the friends around you. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I couldn't play basketball as good as Cam. I couldn't play baseball as good as Rashad Alonzo. I couldn't play basketball or football as good as Robert Hicks. I did all those things. I was a boy. I was with my friends, but it made me want to be better at what I was good at. And if you know, I knew I wasn't going to be. I remember Asha Jackson saying she was going to be a lawyer and the mayor of Atlanta. Asha Jackson is now judge in DeKalb County and may very well one day hold public office. You know, I remember Ali Harris, who's the big brother of Dwayla Harris, going to Georgia Tech when they won a national championship. They split with Colorado. So I was around kids that were determined very early, you know, to do something. And I think that part of winning or being dominant is part of having that determination. You know, at some point you decided, I want to use this skill to uplift me and my family. You know, you inspired your brother, you uplifted your family, and that's all I wanted to do.
What drove you to stay with rap?
I was good at it. You know, like everybody had to be good at something. You know what I'm saying? You are a product of your inspiration and your determination. You had an idol, you saw that idol, and then you targeted and said, I can do that. And hopefully you get to transcend. Like, you know, that's why I like the mythology of African Orishas and Greek heroes and stuff, because they are the personifications of personality that kind of fight against and with for humanity. And athletes are that. You were that for me. You were part of the reason I was determined. I wanted to be a part of the Atlanta story. You know, who I am now is the product of the imagination of a 12-year-old child.
You look back at your early career.
Yeah.
What was one of your first setbacks that made you think, you know, am I really going to be able to do this?
I signed with a company that my music and image wasn't compatible to. Like, I signed to Outkast, who had a deal with Columbia Records. So Outkast was a great entity for me to be signed with, because there was freedom, there was self-expression, there was encouragement to find your own voice. Being at a bigger label, Columbia Records, they were radio-based records. So whether it was Sipping on Some Syrup with 3 6 Mafia or If I Rule the World with Nas, they wanted radio records, and I just wasn't a radio artist. So it just wasn't a place for me to be. Just wasn't, you know, it would have been like putting a run-and-shoot player on a team that was, you know, a half-court team. It just didn't make sense. You know what I'm saying? So I was so young and ambitious to get a deal that I didn't think that all the way through. You know what I mean? And it stifled me, and I was resentful, and it caused me to infight with my friends. And when I got away from that and I had to do it on my own independently, I started to understand that you have to understand when situations aren't right for you, because ultimately the blame, whether good or bad, comes back to me.
And see, that's the changes and sacrifices you make, and you figure it out, and you talk about them obstacles in the road.
Yeah.
You know, and especially when you're talking about being great or dominant at something, nothing is ever perfect.
Never.
So if you're able to take that obstacle and look at the obstacle and say, you know what, obstacle is not meant to stop you. It's meant to slow you down, to make you step back, think about your life. And if you can get over or figure a way to get around it, that's when you know that you have the right attitude, the right mindset to be something big, you know. And it was like that for me, because I've had a lot of setbacks in my life, but I never let anyone tell me what I couldn't do.
Okay.
Every now and then I'll knock down one.
Oh yeah, we about to see why I became a rapper.
Wait a minute, hold on now. The form look good now. The form look pretty good. He just came back. I'm trying to tell you, you ain't gonna believe how old he is.
I ain't shooting for shit.
So you know what's crazy? So I'm coming down the court. I'm here, Bird here, Kevin Willis is here. And this is a heated battle. It's like the middle of third quarter. And he went like this, went around me and put his hand in Larry Bird's chest. Said, don't let this so-and-so score any more tonight. And I looked at Kevin, I'm like, what are you doing?
First age you dunked?
I first dunked at age 13.
You know, in raps, I remember Chuck D saying years ago, a lot of times rap is one of the only art forms where the youth don't admire and encourage the older ones, but that's changing now. You know, I look at me and my rap partner, one of the biggest rap groups around. We're both 2 men in our 40s at this point. And that's an anomaly, but I think as time goes on, like rock and roll, people are gonna appreciate. Like I was laying up last night listening to some Scarface and Too Short, like, like at one point on my concerts, I'm just gonna rap my favorite Scarface and Too Short records, just as an homage to them, you know. And I like I said, I love to see what you've done on court, what young players have been inspired to do. I hope that we get more Vince Carter-like players that openly say that Dominique was the person that influenced me. Because again, in matters of me being here as an Atlantan and as someone who wanted to be great, it can be directly traced back to Dominique Wilkins.
I ended on a man. Don't get nervous for the cat. There it is.
Yeah, for me, like, I'm telling you, like, I look at people like Dale Murphy. I look at people like Dominique Wilkins. I look at people like Deion Sanders. All right, so these people are in my cipher as a child in Atlanta. And I'm grateful for that, even as an entertainer, because had you and Deion and MC Hammer and Breed and Pac not brought an electricity to this city, Atlanta wouldn't be a winning city.
But you know, you look at the same thing in your field.
Yeah.
Of rappers. Look at those kings that's out
Yeah,
there.
yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
who do you compare yourself to, or who did you look up to in those
Ice
present-day
Cube and
rappers?
Scarface. You know, people say stylistically I'm probably a direct student of Ice Cube. So even vocal tone and certain enunciations you can directly tell out of the school of Ice Cube. In terms of depth of morality and rhymes and storytelling narrative ability, Scarface. You know what I'm saying? I got that directly into me. Scarface has had, at this point, an over 30-year career with not one whack album. He's damn near flawless. Ice Cube could stop making a movie, go in the studio, and make a classic album tomorrow. And I always wanted that longevity. I always wanted that. I've seen many great MCs come and go. You know, of course, when you talk about currently who's the MC's greatest influences, you're looking at people like Jay-Z, you know what I'm saying? You're looking at people like Nas, you're looking at past legends we've lost like Biggie, Pac. You're looking at currently people like, at this point, Tip is almost 20 years in at the top of his game, constantly representing Atlanta in a great way. It's just a lot of greatness out there.
I gotta say, man, you have become a household name.
Thank you.
You know, in this city and beyond. But I think the thing that I'm most proud of with you is the positive attitude that you always have around you, and no one ever has anything bad to say. Yeah. And from your intellect, you know, outside of just being an artist, man, you know, it really surprised me and made me very proud, because when we sat down the first time in your barbershop, and some of the stuff you run off, I'm like, this dude's deep. You know, I'm like, Killer is deep, man.
Thank you.
And so, you know, I've heard you talk on interviews and stuff like that, but to actually sit down and talk with you, man, you kind of capture my attention.
I appreciate it.
And I said, this brother is smart dude, man. He's really deep and understands not just, you know, entertainment, but he understands life.
Trying to, man.
But you lived it.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
we both lived it, and where we come up from nothing.
Yeah.
And so we know how to appreciate, you know, things that we have now, because we never had it.
Absolutely.
You
Out
know?
of the soil.
And so for me, you know, to see from an intellectual standpoint how far you are so much ahead than a lot of people. Yeah. And, you know, be it athletes, be it, you know, entertainment, I mean, man, you just, you know, become a very interesting guy in this city that people can idolize. And
I'm a
so
student, man.
I'm really happy to see that.
I'm a student. I made a few people mad. I did a good brother. I did Antonio Moore's show, of brother ADOS, of American Descendants of Slavery. These brothers push for reparations, which is something I believe definitely we're due. We were talking, and I mentioned that, you know, at some point I mentioned I admired Ted Turner, you know, being from Atlanta. And, you know, people are like, oh, man, you married a white man. I'm just like, you know, I'm from a city in which blacks and whites at some point learned to cooperate, and it helped my particular generation out, because we got free Hawks games tickets and Braves games. At this time, Ted owned both teams. And, you know, you didn't always have the attendance you deserved, right? But he offered to Atlanta Public School System, I think Fulton County too, if you got A's and B's, you could come to a game. Now, the seats weren't always great, but I saw Dominique in person, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly. So part of the intellectual that's sitting here is a product of good team ownership. I believe that teams are better with owners, and because when groups or corporations own teams, they become another cog or profit thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, come on, man. Like, you know what I mean?
You don't have the personal feel, the personal involvement, like Tony Rustler and
his wife are on the ground.
They're on the ground.
You see them in Atlanta.
And it's nothing like people owning a franchise.
Nothing like it.
Because they're going to put their heart and soul into
Absolutely.
it, and our ownership has done that and beyond.
Absolutely.
And I can't tell you how much I appreciate them and what they've done, and how he's elevated to this point, he has elevated our franchise to a different level, and eventually it will win under his tutelage.
Absolutely.
I really believe that.
And even the minority ownership he brought in with Grant Hill. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's something to be said about the game of basketball for me in terms of how progressive it is. I see basketball players, I can cheer for them play their career. I've followed them in the coaching and mentorship with other people. And now I'm seeing basketball players go into ownership in business. You know, whether it's cigars and beer with you, whether it's partial team ownership with people like Grant and even people out of the music world like Jay. It's very good to see a system or an organization like the NBA be open to minority ownership and participation, in particular black, because a lot of these systems and franchises and the bigger franchises are built off.
Well, you know, the thing, you know, you just touched on a great point, you know, and I know you do this now, is to encourage those young artists, those young athletes to get in this mindset of what you do now is going to dictate what you become in the future. Don't wait till your career is over before you're trying to decide what you want to do, because you want to get into business, and technology is the way of the world. You want to find a way to get into technology. Find different streams as far as financially that you can involve yourself in and something, because you have the means now. So all these young entertainers and young athletes should find a way to come together and build something. Again, I always say something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, I think I had a conversation with the Hawks owner, with Tony Rexburn. You know, he was very adamant in saying, you know, part of my job in just knowing, mentoring or befriending young men like yourself as an entertainer and the athletes that I work with is saying to you and holding you accountable for, at the end of your career, make sure you have a nest egg that goes into a bigger investment and that grows, because your career window is this short. And I really respect it. He says, you know, if African American people are 15% of America, it's no reason we shouldn't be 15% of the big business that's going on in this country of financing.
He's big on that. I mean,
and I love that about him.
He really, really cares about people.
Yeah.
His ownership cares about people, and there's not one owner in our ownership group that we don't have a great relationship with. Just wonderful people. So when you got people like organically who cares about you, you can't help but want to be engaged with them, want to do things with them. So, you know, I'm very fortunate to be a part of something like that.
So to the advice to the young Mike, I would say to young Michael Render, you had children too early. Don't have children this early. You listen to what your father said. That was the only piece of advice I didn't really listen to. And it's not that I couldn't take care of, hadn't taken care of them. It's just that the amount of time I spent on the road away from them, it hurt.
That's the only thing I regret. The only thing I regret, because I had my older kids, I had them during a time that I traveled all the time, so I didn't get a chance to really enjoy their life.
Yeah, exactly.
My younger kids now, man, we spend so much time together. A lot of times, probably too much time, because I'm always home when I'm not working. But it just shows how appreciative that they are, and they say, you know what, Dad's home today when we get out of school.
Absolutely.
But I couldn't do that when I was a player. Even during the summer when I was always running.
Yeah.
So that's a great point you make, is that, you know, get your feet on the ground first. Get your foundation, you know. Find out what you want to do and how you want to build your career before you start thinking about all that other stuff.
Yeah, I try to tell young guys that I meet in rap, you know, in particular, because that's my thing. I know they'll respect my words. So I'm like, young athlete just got a $20 million contract. Ain't much I can tell him, but congrats. But, you know, a young rapper, you get a $500,000 advance. I can sit down and say, hey, and you're going to listen. But I'll tell any young man, no matter what he does, you know, if you don't have children, don't have any. If you do have children, stop at what you have and start to amass what you want to do and how you want to procure whatever next level you're procuring. Because I think that a lot of times, because we don't have the adult male mentorship that you and I were blessed to have, some people don't have fathers. I've been blessed to have two, a non-bio and a bio and a grandfather. I was blessed with just solid manhood stuff. So I could afford $1 million house, I bought a $500,000 house. I could afford to buy a $250,000 car, I bought a set of apartments because my wife made me. Right. But I've constantly tried to make decisions that would put me better 10 or 15 years down the line. And man, imagine if the younger guys that are coming into the league do that. It's almost like, for as much as athletes and entertainers are criticized, we create a business class right there. You know, if you just say, well, you know, instead of buying this $30 million home in LA, I'm probably just going to get a $3 million house in Atlanta.
One of the things that, too, and I know you do this with a lot of these young artists, and we got to continue to push this, is stop using being a part of your environment as an excuse to fail.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
can't do that.
And we got to continue to push that on kids. And so if we can continue to do that, I think if you save one or two, you've done part of your job.
Yeah.
Mike, tell me, what is your definition of dominance?
For me, my definition of dominance would be having raised independent children that could take care of themselves, having a long and prosperous life with my wife, and having streams of income that take care of us, so we're not constantly trying to take care of it and ourselves. I would like to be able to, if I want, seriously retire as a late 40s, early 50-year-old man and travel for the next 10 and 20 years. To me, that would be a life dominated. My wife told me a few years back, at the height of, kind of becoming what Killer Mike is known as now, hey, I need a husband more than the world needs another martyr. And I have been focused since then on being the best possible human being and husband I can for her. So for me, dominating is just simply leading a life more like my grandparents led. A life that was long and together. They raised independent children and grandchildren. They saved more than they spent. They had investments that took care of them and us afterwards. So I'd like to do that on a macro level, on a bigger level. I'd like to have hundreds of millions of dollars and do it. That's my goal. So if I fall short, I'm still somewhere in a range where I'm taken care of. But my grandparents did it very modestly, and I'd like to have a life like theirs.
Well, I want to say, Mike, man, I'm just so happy that you was able to come here and spend a little time with me. And
I appreciate you.
Again, I'm so proud of what you become and what you're still doing in your life, and that's to be kind of a brother with you in the same atmosphere. Being in State Farm Arena, seeing you guys with the beautiful barbershop they have down there. So I can't tell you how thankful I am and how I appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk with some of the little folks like myself.
I want to thank you on the behalf of the Collier Heights community, Collier Heights Elementary, Frederick Douglass High School. You provided so much inspiration for me and my group of friends, whether it was Robert, Darius, JP, Cam, Alonzo, Rashad. We just, man, you are the hero we thought you were, in flesh. You know what I mean? It's not often you get to meet your Batman, and I have not been disappointed. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it, man. That's what dominance is all about.
Absolutely.